I'm Piyush Jain. I work as a pipeline developer for Framestore Studios in Montreal. I started my VFX journey back in 2010 as a roto artist with Prime Focus Studios. I'm basically from Indore, and I took the plunge in 2010 and moved to Mumbai to start off the VFX life, the VFX journey. I was in Prime Focus Studios till 2018. I've moved from roto to stereo division to technical in 2012. I have an engineering degree in computer science, so that obviously helped in understanding how coding works or how the logic works. Of course, that was back in C++ and Java, but then I moved over to Python when I joined the technical department. It's been a fun journey. I've moved from Mumbai to Vancouver in 2016. Then in 2017 I moved to Montreal, and then in 2018 I decided to move to Framestore. So from stereo to VFX, it was a fun journey. Apart from this, I also host or co-host a podcast called Baaton Ki Therapy with a very good friend of mine. This is just to take our mind out of VFX and coding and trying to solve problems every day. But I was interested in VFX from back in 2006. This is before I even joined engineering. I had tried my hand at Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, and Photoshop and CorelDRAW, trying to create home videos, trying to edit videos for friends, trying to create those cool cards and invitations that we saw floating around back in 2006. There was not a lot of information about that, but VFX was supposed to be the booming industry at that time. But then again, I obviously wanted to finish up with my engineering first. That felt stable, but by 2008, I think third year of my engineering, I was like, nope, I want to fully fledged do VFX. I won't deny I've been asked this question quite a few times on why you have decided to go to VFX when you have an engineering degree. I remember when this was my fourth year of engineering, and a lot of companies like Wipro, TCS, Infosys were coming to the college for placements. I had enough percentage to sit in any of them, but I didn't show up. I got a call from my placement department in my college asking like, why don't you want to do that? And my answer was, I don't want to sit. It's pretty ironic, but I said always, I don't want to sit in front of a computer for 8-10 hours of my life and just code. But now to think of it, just as an hindsight, but that's what I'm doing right now, funnily enough. But this is something that has always been very interesting. You see the results immediately. Like, for example, if I write a small piece of code and that helps 10 people, it's gratifying. It's always fun to see how your work plays out, how your tools are being used in front of you, rather than being sandwiched between another 1,000 lines of code somewhere in a bank ATM trying to do something. That's my personal view of VFX. It's always fun to see the magic, right? You always, as a kid, you always wanted to know how a magician did something. That's what I wanted to know, like how those effects came out, how transformers, robots became what they were, how the Matrix happened, how there's so many examples. There's like tons and tons of examples of how VFX influenced all our lives. As simple as you can't see, like Legs or 300 movie, for example, how the blood splatter happened, how did the effect happen. This is countless, right? You can have multiple examples from a single movie and then says, yeah, I know I wanted to know how it worked. So that basically pushed me into how I can do that. And before I joined in, I obviously knew about how the hours would be, how much pressure the job is, or how little the pay is, but I think that's something that everyone goes through when they're starting off. You would want to have a stable environment to work with. You want to have something that pleases you, that kindles your passion, before you want to say, okay, fine, I'm spending 16 hours of my day working on something that I'm not passionate about. Never happens. It's all about passion, I believe, and that's something that I feel is abundant in our industry. There's so much passion, there's so much will to do good work, so many things to say, okay, fine, I know I can push this, I can make this better. That's what amazes me about our industry. I have never seen someone saying, I won't do good work because I don't want to. It's like, okay, let's see how good I can take it. That's the attitude that absolutely amazes me. But on the flip side, there are obviously some negative points about our industry. I think one thing being Everyone knows how the pay structure works, how difficult it is for freshers to convince their parents and their families and their loved ones and even themselves that okay, it's gonna take me a couple of years just to make it, and before you know it, they break it, and then they go back to what they were doing, or get involved in some different aspect. I think patience is something that lacks. There's not much incentive for new people to just join in, and it's expensive. Come on, like I remember earning 5,000 rupees in Mumbai, and it was difficult back in 2010, but just had to make sure that I had good friends, I had enough family support, enough support from my spouse that like just push forward, move it. Once that thing, couple of years went by, and then was happy, was enjoying, was I didn't mind those long hours of work at all. Stability is one of the biggest challenges that we have in VFX. It's not because it's the industry is lacking something or there's something fundamentally flawed in the industry. It's just people. It's all people thing, right? Like you have clients that might pull off in their time. Like for example, COVID-19 is a very good example. When theaters are not working, you can't shoot movies, you can't shoot series because of the social distancing measures and everything in place. So you can't do VFX, and we have seen a lot of these examples where people are unfortunately being laid off or temporarily laid off or furloughed in a lot of other countries. So I think one thing I would definitely recommend is, I know this starts off as a hobby. Coding started off as a hobby for me as well, when I was actually was working as a creative individual in the industry, and that's what it took over. So I find myself a little bit more stable because of that. Pick up one thing that's different from what you're doing right now. Like for example, if you're a roto artist, start thinking about how you can do paint work, or how you can do matte paintings, or how, even if it's very small, you never know how it might help you with your CV, with your resume, and trying to get a job where unfortunately people can't. Coding definitely is a very, very good example, because it's just not VFX that requires Python coders, or it's just not VFX that requires your knowledge of either new coding or Maya coding, or basic default database information. So it's a variety of fields that you can actually code in. It could be a website, who knows? And then when you take that and put it up in your resume or in your CV, and unfortunately in a situation like this, and if you're looking for a job, your domain expands a lot. Like it might be a different department in your VFX studio, it might be a different department in a different VFX studio, or it might be in your department itself. Who knows? It's the options when you have that one extra thing is unimaginable. You can do a lot more things than that. Obviously there are challenges. I do feel that with certain studios, if the upper management is not technically oriented, when I mean technically oriented, I mean they don't want to invest in technical knowledge. If it works, don't why to break it, or if it works, let it go throughout. I have worked with few studios, few vendors who were like that, but right now it's not the age. You have to invest a little bit on technology, so that your artist or your studio can just only concentrate on what's important. Coming from a technical background or technical standpoint, I do feel that a lot of studios do need it. It's just not about employing a pipeline guy and getting all the work done. It's about changing your outlook towards, okay, I know this works this specific way, but I can make it better. There are certain areas that you can't do it, unfortunately. There are certain things that you can't automate, but we can still put things in place that helps it move forward. Like for example, folder creation can get automated. It's the easiest thing that can be done. The thing that you need to do is to set up standards. As soon as you set up standards, things can fall in place. A person can come and code something for you. He might be a freelancer, who knows, and it can get your work done. I know it's easier said than done, but you have to take the first step. This also helps when you talk about growth opportunities. I know it gets difficult in certain studios, in certain aspects, that you can't jump around that much, but that's when you have time that, okay, I know it's difficult. I've all personally gone through that, where you're working 8, 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, and then you don't want to come back home open up a tutorial and start going through that. But luckily there are so many, training videos, there's so many free things out there that I'm pretty sure you can learn a certain technique. You don't have to master it, but you just have to understand how things work. So if that skill set gets pulled out and say, for example, if you're very, very good modeler in Blender, or if you're a very good modeler in 3ds Max, you can definitely take that, core concepts, pick it up and put it in Maya, or put it in some another third party proprietary software on a studio. But you have to have one more, a skill that helps you move forward. That's very important. And just be open to change. That's something that I feel people are not. I have seen people stuck with Blackmagic Fusion for a very long time, thinking that no, it won't change and it should not change. I'm just going to use it. But now everyone moved towards Nuke. There might be something else that might dethrone Nuke. It might not happen, but it's a possibility. So be open to change, understand what's going on, understand what's out there in the world. Nuke releases a new version every year. Maya releases every other year or so. Take a look, see what change logs have they done, what new technology they have brought it in. You obviously can download a lot of NLC versions. You don't have to have commercial licenses for that. Try it out, test it out, see what's going on. See what's available. Houdini is one thing, for example, that's massive right now. You can just go in, take a look, understand how things work, just get a hang of it. That would be my suggestion to anyone trying to grow in their field, or want to have a different opportunity to move into a different thing. Pick up something, spend some time on it, understand how things work, and I think it will definitely help you. Future of pipeline. It's complicated, but it's always fun. You don't know what you might come across the other next. Again, I would love to give an example of COVID-19. This unfortunate situation has fortunately given us some things to think about. There's a huge push for virtual production development, trying to work with Unreal, bringing that into VFX folds. It's still game oriented, but how we can include that and make it part and parcel of the VFX way of life. There's always steps, there's always things. It's fun. It's fun to think about when you talk about machine learning, when you talk about artificial intelligence. That's also one more field that Pipeline as a department is trying to bring in, trying to make as much use of it's possible. I won't say it's still new. It's the data that we have. See, right now with VFX, the biggest challenge is the lack of data. Some studios do it, some studios don't do it. Where you're using your machine learning, it could be to predict your render times. It might be to predict how much storage you would use, or it might be to figure out how animation would work for a specific character or for a specific rig. The possibilities are endless, obviously, but again, you have to dig deep and think, okay, how I'm going to approach this. Easier said than done. I've seen cases where studios have tried, working out how render times would be predicted, but again, the issue being lack of data or lack of variables, or you don't track those things. As a simple example, if you have 10 rotor nodes in your new comp, it might take a minute. But what if it's 20 rotor nodes? Then think about it. It might take double the time. Then it's what about 40 nodes? Then it will take more time. But then you add a Z blur into the picture. Then the whole equation goes out for a toss. It's just an example. Obviously, it might not. It's not practical enough. But it's something that obviously a lot of pipeline divisions are looking for it. There are a few things. Recently, I think Facebook launched its AI to convert the code, so that could be a fun thing to work with. You have your existing code base with Python, move over to C++. That's much faster. That compiles quicker. Who knows? It's always fun to look at things and what updates the industry is pushing out. A lot of commercial tools or a lot of open source tools. For example, PostgreSQL. We might be using an old version. The new version has a lot of advantages, how you can bring it into your workflow. It's a long and tedious process. The biggest example being converting all your code base to Python 3. I know we have been talking about this for a long time. Again, it's easy to say it, let's just convert everything. But then when you have like more than 500 repositories in your Git server, it's impossible to just even think about it. But then gearing up for it, making sure that from this day forward, you're gonna make sure that anything that you write is Python 3 compatible. That's the way forward. And then again, spending time trying to make sure that I know what needs to be done, and that's something that I think would be the future of pipeline development. It's just not support, but also integrating new technologies and newer solutions into your VFX pipeline. I think with the current work environment and the current global situation, it's hard to stay positive. Trust me, I've also been through that. I've had situations where I'm like thinking, I don't know what's going to happen next. But then again, we are a very, very good community. VFX as a whole works more like friends and families rather than colleagues, I believe. I've seen people coming to aid of each other and in the worst times possible. I have seen connecting to people who have not talked for like 5 years, and they helping me out without blinking an eye, and I doing the same for them. I would just say first would be just be patient. Things will get better. If you're at the bottom, then the only way forward is to go up. So it's always that. Second would be, I think, just don't think about the monetary gains at the moment. I know you have started off. I know it's something that everyone is pushing for, everyone is looking forward for, even you are looking forward for it. Us being Indians, there's always a mentality of how much, what's your bank balance. I know it sounds very cringy, I know it sounds very stereotypical, but that's the fact. I have also gone through that. But then you'll have to understand, and you'll have to explain that comparisons would always be there, but it's your passion that matters. It's the knowledge that matters. Once you have that, trust me, it's going to be impossible for anyone to stop you, or anyone want to question you. Okay, why are you doing this? I would just say always go for a hobby. Make sure that after you come home from a long stretch or from a long extended deadline, you have something to look forward for. That's very important. For me, it's always about reading books. I've been a book nerd for, I think, ages, probably since I was 5 years old. So that's my thing. I always look forward for a book when I come back home after a long day, or after a time where I'm like, okay, I can't think anymore. I can't look at anything, or I don't want to look at the code anymore. So that's my go-to mantra for keeping myself positive and keeping myself occupied with what was going on. So yeah, figure out a hobby. That's going to be helpful. One more thing I would just say is talk to someone. That's something that's very apparent these days, and I know it gets difficult, but you should talk to someone. If you want professional help, please go ahead and do that. There should not be any stigma around it. You should share whatever is bothering you. It gets to you after a point in time. You won't realize it, but people who love you, who are around you, who care for you, would definitely see you, sinking in that hole. So please talk to someone. Might be a close friend, might be your mom, might be your dad, might be your spouse, or just talk to a counselor. There's no shame in that. There absolutely should not be any problem in that. Please do that. Fifth and final thing to stay positive is eat healthy, work out more. I know this sounds very, very, very cheesy coming in from the quintessential coder, but no, I would definitely recommend figuring out a physical activity. Again, you don't realize it. When I started off at 20, I didn't realize it, but when I turned 29, I realized, I'm not the fit anymore. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your physique. You can, as the time goes, you might not be able to take take up that much workload. Your body might not be able to sustain that long, crazy hours. So it's good to have, physical strength. And when I'm saying eating healthy, because I have done that, I've been, it's something that everyone does, picking up those ramen packets, ramen noodles, or eating misal pav in Mumbai, or, just grabbing a burger or a salad or something. Not too healthy salad, but salad from McDonald's is not actually healthy. But, eat healthy, that obviously helps you keep in shape, your mind better, and, gives you more energy to, to sustain the work pressure of VFX.